Hi everyone, welcome to our Wednesday video. I decided that I wanted to share with you a watercolor resist video that I did. At the time I wasn't really happy with the results, but I wanted to show it with you or share it with you anyway. So as I've done before in my previous videos, remember when you're using the watercolor paper and you want to do like a crisp black line for your drawing, if you're doing like a figure or anything like that, if you have the Misty tool, I highly suggest that you use it because you can get that crisp line by stamping it more than one time. So right now I'm just getting my lady out to figure out exactly where I wanted to put her. Once I had it placed, I inked her up, and I almost forgot to powder, but before I stamped I was like, oops, let me get that. So we need to get the oils off the paper. I don't know about you guys, but I use hand lotions a lot, so I always got to make sure I use the powder. And just in case, I decided to stamp it one more time. It's hard to see, but it leaves like a watermark on your paper. And then you just take the embossing powder and sprinkle it on. Alright, and once you have it on, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Oh, okay. I know what I was doing. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the second piece because I wanted to show you two different options. So before I heated up the lady, I wanted to get my stamping and embossing powder put on for the second sheet as well. So I just took this one stamp from the collection, by the way. It's from Graphic 45. It's the Hampton Art, and it's their cling stamps. And it's a real funky kind of Art Deco to me symbol, but what's funny is when I go to heat emboss it and then, you know, ultimately do the resist on it, it almost looked like snowflakes, and I was like, well, I'm really not feeling what that looks like, but I wanted to show you guys what you could still do with, you know, maybe a random stamp in a collection that you have that you may not know exactly what to use it for. You could create a pattern on, you know, a background and just do a quick simple technique with the embossing resist, you know. So that's why I'm still sharing it with you, even though I really didn't feel like I liked, you know, that I would use the piece after I did it, but the technique is still there, and it works with any watercolor medium that you want to use. We could have used distress inks as watercolor. You can use traditional watercolors, which is what we're going to wind up doing. So once we got all of the stamped done and then embossing powder all over everything, we're going to heat up our tool gun, and I'm going to melt our embossing powder. Now, depending on what you like, I find that I tend to like this particular technique with flowers. I don't know what it is. I'm a flower queen. I love everything that's flower oriented. I wanted to step out of that and try something different, which is why I chose these two items, because they're stamps that I don't normally use all the time. Even though I think they're beautiful stamps, I just don't really use them that much. So that's why I wanted to use these particular stamps for this technique, so that way I could get some use out of them and, you know, see if I could use it for something. So we're just heating it up just like we did before, trying to keep the heat tool moving around so that way, you know, it doesn't overheat the embossing powder, and also trying to keep my hand out of the way at the same time to not burn myself, because these heating guns, they get hot for sure. So there's our marks. So right now I'm going to use this watercolor palette that I have, and it's a great size. It's like a travel case. Just trying to see. Of course, I didn't leave it on my desk, but it's a koi. I want to say a koi watercolor. It's really, the colors are very bright, and you can see here, like laying down this red. What I did was I wet the paper first, and then I started grabbing some of the color straight from the palette over on my left. And you can see she starts to, you know, really come alive. And what you can do is, if you have too much color somewhere, you can damp it, you know, dab it off. Use your heating tool to heat up or to dry. Just making sure not to stay on the embossing parts too long. You just want to, you know, dry the water, what you've put down as far as water. And so what I decided to do was, because it was a woman in a very pretty gown with feathers, I was like, well, maybe if I use this black, that'll at least bring out the shape of the dress itself. I could bring attention to the shoes, and then where her skin and hair and stuff is, we can use different colors of browns, or maybe even, you know, blacken the hair area. Because remember, anywhere where there's embossing powder, it's not going to hold any of the liquid because it doesn't stay where there's embossing powder. That's part of the resist. So I started liking what it was doing, but because I noticed all the hair was solid, I just wet it up and started dabbing, so that way I didn't have like this weird brown glow around her head. And I'm just once again getting some more of the red, because there was some writing that was on that stamp, and what I was trying to do was highlight that and give her a little bit of a ground. Because I wasn't sure if I was just going to leave the wording that was there, what I was going to do. But I did know that I wanted the sharp red line, and I still wanted to dab it with, you know, my paper. And I just wanted to show you a little bit up close that the writings that we had there. And you just keep adding, you know, color, liquid, until you get the color or the effect that you want. Now, and you could technically still do this that I'm about to say with the watercolor, but like if you use distress inks, you could color it all in and then drop water droplets and remove ink from it to create a texture background. There's a lot of different options you can do. Now, this one is the one that I told you, it started looking like snowflakes to me, because of the pattern, the way the shape was. It just looked like a weird snowflake. But it's the same technique, laying down. You saw I did the water first, and then I started laying down the blue. And then I was like, well, let me show you if we were to do a second color. So I always like blue and yellow, because of course, you know, if we put them together, it's going to give us a third color in the middle. Where they overlap, we'll get a nice green color. And it's subtle, but I will say, because the yellow is a lighter color, the white embossing powder isn't showing up as vibrant as like on the blue side. But what you can do, which I do a little bit later, is I go into the yellow next to it. It's more that ochre yellow, to give it a little bit of a darker color around where the stamp image is. And that's the best part about this technique. You know, you can just keep adding layers, dry it, add some more coloring. With watercolors in general, they do reactivate with water, so you just have to be careful with, you know, what colors you're putting on top of other colors. But for the most part, as long as you know, keep it doing the blue and the yellow, you're just going to have this really nice kind of limey green, light green in the middle. And there you have it. So there's our two projects, excuse me. And now I'm going to show you what I did with them. So this is the red one. I added some sequins and I added a sentiment which says, "A girl should be two things, classy and fabulous," by Coco Chanel. I love it. So thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this technique. Like and subscribe and leave any comments down below, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.